The Apex were known across the galaxy as fearless rulers. Their fleets moved like dark storms between stars, and no world had ever stopped them. They did not retreat. They did not bargain. They did not show mercy. Other species learned to submit before the first warning shot was fired. Galactic records spoke of the Apex as a force of nature, not a people. To resist them was said to be pointless. When the Apex first encountered humans, they were disappointed. The meeting took place at a distant trade station on the edge of human space. The station was old, built more for watching than for fighting. Humans had placed observers there to track movement along the outer lanes. James stood near the wide viewing window, his hands resting calmly at his sides. Emily worked beside him, reviewing quiet streams of data on a simple screen. The Apex delegation arrived in heavy armor, their steps loud against the station floor. Their presence filled the room. Other species would have stepped back or lowered their eyes. James and Emily did neither. They simply watched. To the Apex, this calm looked like weakness. Human bodies were smaller. Their voices were soft. They carried no visible weapons. The Apex commander spoke with certainty, declaring that Earth would soon fall under Apex control. The words were not shouted. They did not need to be. The Apex believed fear would do the rest. James listened carefully. When the commander finished, James replied in a steady voice. He warned them that Earth was not an easy world to take. Humans would not welcome an attack. He suggested the Apex turn away. The commander laughed. Emily spoke next, explaining that humans valued peace but would protect their home. She described Earth's long history of survival, of endurance against harsh conditions and endless challenges. Her words were calm and simple. The Apex heard none of it. To them, warnings from quiet beings meant nothing. The humans did not threaten. They did not show anger. They did not kneel. This confused the Apex, but they dismissed the feeling. They decided humans did not understand what was coming. The meeting ended quickly. The Apex left the station without another word. As their ships departed, James watched the dark shapes fade into the distance. He felt no panic, only a heavy sense of knowing. Emily stood beside him, her expression serious but controlled. "They will come," Emily said. "Yes," James replied. "And they believe no one will stand." News of the encounter spread through human space. There were no loud speeches or calls for glory. There were no dramatic shows of power. Instead, people prepared quietly. Civilian ships adjusted routes. Supply lines shifted. Defense networks activated in silence. On Earth, leaders gathered not in grand halls, but in simple rooms filled with maps and screens. They spoke plainly. They planned carefully. Humanity had faced extinction before, not from enemies among the stars, but from its own mistakes, its own planet, its own limits. Humans had learned to survive by thinking ahead. The Apex, meanwhile, prepared for conquest. Their scouts reported that human worlds lacked massive war fleets. There were no planet-sized weapons, no glowing shields visible from space. The Apex interpreted this as proof. They marked Earth as an easy prize. A symbolic victory. A lesson to the galaxy. As the Apex fleets moved closer, they encountered human ships that did not flee. These ships did not attack either. They held position, transmitted warnings, and recorded everything. When ordered to move aside, they complied calmly as if retreat meant nothing. This behavior unsettled some Apex officers. Victims usually panicked. They begged or lashed out. Humans did neither. James and Emily continued their work on the distant station. They watched the slow advance of Apex forces, tracking every movement. Their reports were short and clear. No emotional language. No exaggeration. At times, Emily wondered if the Apex mistook human silence for surrender. She remembered Earth's storms, its deep oceans, its unforgiving deserts. Humans had not conquered their planet. They had learned to live with it, to adapt, to endure. The Apex did not understand this kind of strength. As the fleets crossed into human-controlled space, James sent one final message to the Apex command. It was brief. It stated that humans would not strike first. It also stated that humans would not abandon Earth. The Apex commander did not reply. Instead, Apex ships formed attack patterns spreading across key routes. The galaxy watched in uneasy silence. Many believed this was the end of humanity. Others barely noticed. Humans were still seen as a minor species, too new, too soft. James stood by the window again as the first Apex war signals lit the distant void. Emily joined him, holding a data pad with calm hands. "Do you think they truly believe we are weak?" Emily asked. James considered the question. "I think they believe strength only looks one way. Outside, the stars remained quiet. No explosions. No alarms. Just motion. The Apex felt no fear as they advanced. Fear had never touched them before. They believed fear belonged only to those about to lose. What they did not know was that humans had learned long ago how to stand without shouting, how to prepare without boasting, and how to face impossible odds without calling it bravery. To the Apex, humanity looked small and silent. They did not yet understand that silence could be a warning. And they had no idea that, soon, the galaxy would learn what happens when quiet beings decide to stand. The Apex attack began without ceremony. There was no warning sent to Earth, no final demand. Apex war fleets crossed into human space as they had crossed into countless other regions before. Their ships were large, dark, and heavily armed. To the Apex, this was the moment when fear usually spread like fire. But fear did not come. Human systems detected the invasion early. Signals moved faster than panic. Across stations and colonies, quiet alerts activated. Michael stood on the command deck of a civilian transport hub, watching evacuation routes light up on a plane screen. His voice remained steady as he gave instructions. Ships were loaded in order. Families moved calmly. No one shouted. David worked beside him, guiding traffic away from the main lanes. He had trained for disasters that never came, drills many once called boring. Now those drills became real. Each ship left on time. Each corridor stayed clear. The process was smooth, almost slow. The Apex noticed. Their sensors showed human ships moving away from danger zones, but not in wild patterns. There was no scatter. No chaos. It was as if humans had already planned for this moment. On one of the outer platforms, John stood alone in a small observation room. He recorded everything. He captured the first sight of Apex fleets entering human space. He recorded human responses, the calm voices, the steady movements. His task was simple: remember, so the truth would survive no matter what followed. Apex strike groups advanced toward key human worlds. They expected desperate resistance or desperate flight. Instead, they found empty corridors and quiet skies. Human military ships appeared only where needed, holding lines just long enough for civilians to pass through. The Apex fired warning shots near a colony station, expecting surrender. The station powered down non-essential systems and continued evacuation. No plea was sent. No threat returned. Confusion spread through Apex command channels. Jessica worked deep within a human defense node near Earth. The room was small and plain, filled with simple consoles. No grand displays. No dramatic lights. She coordinated defensive placements with clear commands. Shields activated where needed. Mines deployed in narrow paths. Every action served a purpose. Ashley managed communications between defense teams. She spoke softly, repeating instructions, correcting small errors before they grew. She did not raise her voice. She did not rush. The system responded with calm efficiency. To the Apex, human defenses looked weak. There were no massive walls of fire. No overwhelming counterattack. Human defenses were precise, narrow, and careful. Apex ships that pushed too far found themselves slowed, redirected, or damaged just enough to retreat. This was not how wars usually went. An Apex commander ordered a direct assault on a human outpost, expecting it to fall quickly. As Apex ships closed in, the outpost released decoy signals and powered down. The Apex fired anyway, wasting ammunition on empty space. When they moved closer, small human craft disabled their sensors and vanished. The Apex commander felt irritation. Then something stranger. Uncertainty. Back at the evacuation hub, Michael received confirmation that the last civilian ship had departed. He allowed himself a slow breath. David checked the final route and shut it down cleanly. There was no celebration. The work was simply done. John's recordings continued. He noted the absence of fear. He noted how humans checked on each other even as danger approached. He noted how no one asked who would be remembered as a hero. The Apex pushed deeper into human space. Each step forward felt heavier than expected. Humans did not rush to meet them, but they did not vanish either. Human ships appeared, delayed them, and disappeared again. Every move cost the Apex time. Time was something the Apex had never worried about. Jessica reviewed incoming data. Apex forces were adjusting tactics, trying to provoke panic. She countered with small changes, shifting defense points by narrow margins. The Apex fell for it again and again, chasing weaknesses that were not real. Ashley noticed something unusual in Apex communications. Pauses. Repeated commands. Conflicting orders. Apex commanders were not used to uncertainty. They were trained to crush resistance, not to chase calm shadows. On an Apex flagship, officers reviewed reports in silence. Human resistance numbers were low. Human weapons were unimpressive. And yet progress was slow. Losses were minimal but momentum was gone. One Apex officer asked a question no Apex had asked before. Why do they not fear us? The question had no answer. Humans continued their work. Defense teams rotated without complaint. Supply routes adjusted quietly. There were no speeches broadcast to inspire courage. There was no dramatic music or loud symbols of unity. Humans simply did what needed to be done. As Apex ships approached closer to Earth, they encountered a line of human vessels holding position. The vessels were small and spaced carefully. They did not attack. They did not retreat. Apex weapons locked on. A single human message transmitted across open channels. It was calm. It stated that civilians were no longer present. It stated that further advance would be met with resistance. The Apex hesitated. This pause lasted only seconds, but it mattered. Apex ships had never paused before. In that moment, confusion became something deeper. A sense that this war did not follow known rules. Michael watched the same moment from a distant screen. He said nothing. David stood beside him, arms crossed, eyes focused. John captured the pause. Jessica adjusted defense systems, ready but patient. Ashley confirmed all channels were stable. The Apex finally fired. Human ships responded with precise force. Not overwhelming. Not reckless. Enough to stop the advance. Enough to send a message without shouting it. The Apex pulled back slightly to reassess. For the first time in their long history, the Apex did not understand the enemy in front of them. Humans did not fight like conquerors. They did not fight like victims. They fought like something else. As the stars returned to quiet movement, Apex commanders reviewed their plans. The feeling in their ranks was unfamiliar and unwelcome. Confusion had taken root. And it would not leave easily. The conflict did not end after the first battles. Instead, it deepened. The Apex pushed harder into human space, increasing the size of their fleets and the strength of their attacks. They believed this phase would break the humans. Every other species had broken by now. Fear always came in the end. But humans did not break. Daniel stood on the bridge of a small human fleet near a narrow star passage. His ships were few and modest. None were built to impress. They were built to function. Daniel watched Apex ships gather on the far edge of the system, their shapes dark and heavy against the stars. "Hold position," Daniel said calmly. His crew did not question him. They trusted the plan even if the plan meant standing still in front of a larger force. When the Apex advanced, Daniel's fleet did not flee. They adjusted spacing, activated layered defenses, and waited. Apex weapons fired in waves meant to overwhelm. Human ships absorbed the hits, redirected power, and stayed in place. The Apex expected retreat. It did not come. Across nearby systems, Lauren worked from a defense coordination center. Her task was not to win battles. Her task was to protect lives. Civilian worlds still existed deeper in human space, and Lauren made sure the fighting stayed far from them. She rerouted fleets, reinforced weak points, and closed passages before Apex scouts could reach them. When given the option to strike back at an exposed Apex supply line, Lauren refused. "Defense first," she said simply. "Always." Some officers questioned her choice. Revenge was tempting. Striking back felt good. But Lauren understood something the Apex did not. Humans did not need revenge to fight. They needed purpose. And their purpose was each other. The Apex attacked Daniel's position again and again. Each time the human fleet adjusted. They did not chase the Apex. They did not push forward. They stood their ground, blocking the path like a quiet wall. Apex commanders grew frustrated. They increased firepower, expecting fear to appear at last. Instead, Daniel's fleet tightened formation. Damaged ships were shielded by others. No vessel was left alone. An Apex officer observed the pattern and felt something uncomfortable. Humans did not abandon their weak. They did not sacrifice ships to gain advantage. They slowed themselves to protect everyone. This made no sense. Lauren received reports of the engagement and adjusted nearby defenses to support Daniel's stand. She sent repair ships and supply drones, all unarmed, all clearly marked. Apex sensors detected them but did not fire at first, unsure. Humans were helping each other during battle. On another front, a human colony came under threat. Apex forces moved to strike it directly. Lauren responded by evacuating the colony early, days before the Apex arrived. When Apex ships entered the system, they found it empty. No traps. No ambush. Just silence. The apex destroyed what remained out of anger. But their victory felt hollow. There were no cries of fear. No signs of surrender. Just abandoned homes and quiet streets. Back at Daniel's position, the apex attempted a breakthrough. They sent fast ships through narrow gaps, trying to split the human line. Daniel anticipated the move. His ships shifted smoothly, closing gaps and forcing the apex vessels into tight turns where they lost speed. Human fire struck with precision. Not excessive. Not wasteful. The apex ships withdrew, damaged but not destroyed. This restraint unsettled the apex more than heavy losses would have. Why did the humans not finish them? The answer began to form slowly in apex minds. Humans were not fighting for pride. They were not fighting to dominate. They were fighting to hold space, to buy time, to protect others. Every human stand slowed the apex advance. Lauren watched the larger map of human space. Each delay mattered. Each held line meant another world secured, another population moved out of danger. She felt no thrill, no hatred. Only focus. She remembered Earth's long history, how humans had survived floods, storms, wars, and famine. Survival had never been about crushing enemies. It had been about holding on together. The apex launched a coordinated assault across multiple systems, hoping to overwhelm human defenses through sheer pressure. The plan would have worked against any other species. Humans responded by spreading out the pressure. Daniel's fleet took on more than its share, refusing to retreat even as damage accumulated. His crew worked in silence, repairing systems mid-battle, sharing power between ships. Lauren diverted reinforcements where they were needed most, not where victory looked easiest. She ignored requests to chase fleeing apex ships. "Let them go," she said. "They are not the goal." On an apex flagship, commanders reviewed updated projections. The human front was not collapsing. It was bending, slowing, absorbing force. Every expected breakthrough turned into a delay. One commander voiced a thought others had begun to fear. "They are not trying to win quickly." The room grew quiet. Humans did not need quick victory. Time favored them. They used time like a shield. Daniel received a message from Lauren during a brief lull. It was short. Civilian worlds were secure. Evacuations complete. His stand had bought enough time. Daniel allowed himself a small breath of relief. He did not smile. There was still work to do. When the apex attacked again, Daniel's fleet held. One ship took heavy damage and fell behind. Without hesitation, two others slowed to protect it. The formation tightened, reducing firepower but saving lives. The apex noticed. They always noticed now. Human ships did not break formation even when it would have been smarter by apex standards. Humans chose loyalty over advantage. Slowly, unwillingly, the apex began to understand. These beings were not fearless because they lacked fear. They were fearless because fear did not control their actions. As the battle eased and the apex pulled back once more, the advance stalled again. Lines on the galactic map shifted only slightly. Too slowly. Lauren closed another defensive corridor and marked it secure. Daniel maintained his position, damaged but unbroken. Across human space, similar stories unfolded. Quiet stands. Small fleets. Careful choices. The apex had never faced an enemy like this. An enemy that did not fight for glory. An enemy that fought for each other. And as long as humans stood together, the apex advance would never be fast enough. The apex decided the time for testing was over. Confusion had lasted too long. Delays had piled up. Human space still stood. This could not be allowed. They gathered their strongest force. Across the stars, apex war fleets moved together for the first time in generations. Massive ships formed a single wave, designed to crush resistance in one final push. Their target was clear. Not to occupy it slowly but to end the war in one blow. Human sensors detected the movement early. James stood on a central command station near Earth, watching the display fill with apex signals. The numbers were larger than anything seen before. This was not another probe. This was the end the apex had planned. James felt the weight of the moment, but he did not show it. He turned to Emily, who stood beside a broadcast console. Her hands were steady. "They are coming with everything," Emily said. "Yes," James replied. "So will we." Human fleets did not rush forward. They did not scatter. Instead, ships moved into layered positions around Earth and nearby systems. Defense lines aligned with evacuation corridors. Every movement had purpose. Every ship knew its role. Emily activated the broadcast. Her signal was not sent only to humans. It was sent openly across galactic channels the apex had once controlled. Other species listened. Some watched in fear. Some watched in disbelief. Emily spoke simply. She explained how the war had begun. She showed recordings John had gathered. Human ships holding lines. Evacuations without panic. Defenses built to protect, not to destroy. She showed how humans delayed the apex again and again, not through power but through care. This war is not about conquest, Emily said calmly. It is about survival. We did not choose it. But we will not abandon our people. The broadcast continued as apex fleets advanced. On the forward edge of human space, a single meeting channel opened. The apex commander demanded contact. James accepted. The image of the apex commander filled the screen. Massive. Armored. Confident but not entirely calm. You stand before annihilation, the commander said. Kneel and your species may endure. James looked directly at the image. He did not raise his voice. We will not kneel, he said. But we are not your enemy. The commander reacted with anger. You resist a force that has ended civilizations. James nodded slightly. We know. Then you are fools, the commander said. James shook his head. No. We are protectors. The apex commander paused. That word did not fit any known model of war. James continued. We do not fight to rule others. We fight so our children can live. So other worlds are not burned for pride. The commander dismissed the words and ordered the attack. The galaxy watched. Apex ships surged forward, weapons blazing. Human defenses responded, but not with overwhelming fire. Shields flared. Interceptor ships moved with careful timing. Mines activated only where needed. Human fleets absorbed the impact and held. James stayed on the command channel watching reports arrive. Losses came but lines held. Ships covered each other. When one fell back, another moved forward without hesitation. Emily's broadcast showed everything. Other species saw human ships shielding damaged allies. They saw evacuation vessels still moving safely behind defense lines. They saw restraint where destruction would have been easier. The apex strongest ships reached the inner defense ring. This was where fear was meant to appear. It did not. Human fleets tightened formation. Power was shared. Command stayed short and calm. No one spoke of victory. Only of holding. The apex commander watched the battle unfold and felt something crack inside his certainty. His strongest force was advancing, but slowly. Too slowly. Every push met resistance that did not collapse. Why do they not break? An officer asked. The commander had no answer. James requested the channel again. The commander accepted, this time without threat. You could destroy more of us, James said. You choose not to. James replied, because destruction is not our goal. Emily shifted the broadcast to include the apex response channel. The galaxy listened as James spoke. We are not here to erase you, James said. We are here to stop you from erasing us. The apex commander studied the human for a long moment. Your fleets fight with restraint, he said. You slow yourselves to protect the weak. Yes, James answered. That is our strength. The apex commander remembered countless wars. Speed, terror, collapse. None of that applied here. Around them the battle continued. Apex losses rose not from traps or overwhelming force, but from constant pressure and lack of progress. Human fleets did not chase retreating ships. They reformed and held position. Emily showed the galaxy the pattern clearly. Humans were not conquering space. They were defending it piece by piece. Other species began to understand. This was not weakness. This was discipline. The apex commander finally ordered a pause. Apex ships slowed, pulling back from the inner ring. This had never happened before. An apex retreat, even a partial one, was unthinkable. James watched the movement and spoke again. This does not have to continue. The commander asked quietly, why do you show restraint when you could strike now? James answered without hesitation. Because if we become like you, then we lose everything we are trying to protect. The words stayed in the silence between them. The apex commander looked at the battlefield. Human fleets damaged but unbroken. Apex forces strong but stalled. For the first time, victory did not look certain. He understood then. Human strength did not come from fearlessness or power. It came from unity. From choosing restraint even when rage was justified. From standing together without needing to dominate. The commander ended the attack. Across the stars, apex ships withdrew to a safer distance. Human fleets did not pursue. They held their positions and protected evacuation routes until the last ship was safe. Emily ended the broadcast with a final message. We do not seek your fear. Only your understanding. The galaxy absorbed what it had seen. James stepped away from the screen, exhausted but steady. Emily stood beside him, eyes on the quiet stars. Humanity had taken its stand. Not as conquerors, but as protectors. And the Apex would never forget that difference. The war did not end with a final blast or a burning world. It ended slowly, quietly, in a way no one expected. Apex fleets pulled back from human space in careful stages. They did not flee. They did not fire farewell shots. They withdrew with order, as if leaving behind something heavier than ships and weapons. Across the stars, silence returned where alarms had once echoed. Humans did not chase them. Michael stood in a quiet operations room, watching the last Apex signals fade from the display. For the first time in many days, there were no emergency alerts waiting to replace them. He let out a slow breath he did not realize he had been holding. "It's over," someone said softly behind him. Michael nodded. "Yes, it is." Evacuation routes closed one by one. Civilian ships returned home. Families stepped back onto stations and planets they had left behind in calm trust. There were no cheering crowds. No victory banners. Just people returning to work, to homes, to ordinary life. Emily walked through the central station where the first warning had been spoken. The halls were quieter now, but not empty. Technicians repaired panels. Crews cleaned damage left behind by weeks of tension. Life moved forward without drama. She paused near the same viewing window where she and James had once watched Apex ships arrive. Now the stars looked peaceful again. James stood beside her, his posture relaxed but thoughtful. "They're really gone," he said. "For now," Emily replied. "But they won't forget. Neither would humanity." Across the galaxy, reactions spread slowly. Other species reviewed recordings Emily had broadcast. They replayed images of human fleets holding lines, of ships protecting damaged allies, of restraint shown even when victory seemed possible. Galactic councils met in silence instead of panic. Records were updated. Old descriptions of humans as weak, fragile, or insignificant were removed. New words appeared. Resilient, united, patient, defensive but unyielding. Humanity was no longer listed as an easy target. It was listed as a line that could not be crossed without cost. The Apex returned to their own territory, changed in ways even they did not fully understand. Their commanders studied battle data that made no sense under old rules. They had not been defeated by greater force. They had been stopped by something unfamiliar. The choice to protect instead of dominate. On Earth there were no grand parades. Leaders gave short statements and returned to their duties. News channels spoke quietly, focusing more on rebuilding than on praise. Humans did not need to shout their survival. They had done this before in different forms on their own world. Michael returned to civilian transport work. He oversaw routes that once again carried travelers instead of refugees. He greeted crews by name, checked schedules, solved small problems. When asked how it felt to survive the war, he answered honestly, "We just did our jobs." David resumed his work managing traffic lanes. He updated procedures based on lessons learned. He trained new operators not with stories of glory, but with clear examples of calm under pressure. "Panic wastes time," he reminded them. "Order saves lives." John archived his recordings. He labeled them carefully and stored copies in multiple locations. He did not edit them to look heroic. He left them simple and complete. Truth did not need decoration. Jessica returned to system maintenance and defense planning. She improved designs, making them even simpler, even more precise. When asked why she didn't push for stronger weapons, she replied, "Strong enough is enough." Ashley continued managing communications. She ensured channels remained open, clear, and calm. She trained others to speak without fear, without anger. "Words matter," she said. "Especially when weapons are quiet." Daniel's fleet stood down. His ships entered repair docks, bearing scars from holding the line. Crews rested, then returned to service. Daniel declined offers of promotion. He chose to stay where he was most useful. When asked why, he said, "Someone needs to stand where things break first." Lauren walked through reports showing civilian worlds safe and intact. That mattered more to her than any battle record. She closed defense corridors and reopened trade routes, slowly bringing balance back to human space. She never once referred to what she did as winning. It was surviving, she said. Together. Emily's broadcasts ended. She did not seek attention or praise. Her role had been to show the truth, and the truth had spoken clearly enough. She returned to research and observation, watching the galaxy with calm eyes. James stepped away from command roles entirely. He became an advisor, offering perspective when asked and silence when not. He believed leadership was not about being seen, but about knowing when to step back. One evening, James and Emily stood together beneath a quiet sky, watching stars that no longer felt distant or threatening. "Do you think the galaxy truly understands now?" Emily asked. James thought for a moment. "Understanding takes time," he said. "But they've seen enough to start." Far away, Apex commanders stared at their own stars with different eyes than before. They did not speak of conquest. They spoke of boundaries, of cost, of an enemy who did not seek fear, yet inspired it anyway. Humanity had changed the shape of the war by refusing to play by its old rules. They had shown that strength did not need cruelty, that unity did not require dominance, that restraint could stop even the most feared force in the galaxy. Life continued. Children returned to schools. Ships returned to trade. Worlds repaired damage and moved forward. Humanity did not build monuments to the war. They built systems to prevent the next one. And across the stars, whenever records were consulted, one truth remained clear. The Apex feared no one, until humanity took their stand.